Và để tiếp theo chương trình, chúng tôi xin được trân trọng giới thiệu ông Edmon Chung là CEO của DotAsia sẽ đưa chúng ta đến với một chủ đề tôi tin rằng rất hấp dẫn. Đó là chủ đề đang theo xu hướng trong thời đại số của chúng ta, chủ đề xây dựng định danh số châu Á, từ trải nghiệm người dùng đến định danh thương hiệu trước sự bùng nổ của cư dân mạng trong khu vực ạ. Xin mời ông Edmon Chung.
Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon. First of all, I need to confess that I have prepared the presentation a little bit more focused on digital transformation. I hope you, unlike Noel, hopefully you will find it interesting. And I promise that at the panel, I'll come back to the internet consolidation issue. But it is, though, that there is some relevance to it nevertheless. What I do want to talk about is about how you can probably retake control of some of the situation. Noel mentioned about how we're depending on Facebook, depending on Google. One thing that you can do to retake the traffic, retake control of your brand is something that I want to talk about. But first of all, who is DotAsia? My name is Edmon Chung and I'm from DotAsia. What we do is pretty simple. Instead of domain.com, which you're probably familiar with, we do domain.asia. So if you have an initiative or a company or a project, you can register a .asia domain. And that is one of the things that people start to forget about. The internet was originally, as Noel mentioned, was originally about a decentralized model, but more and more new businesses just set up their Facebook page and go out for business. I'm going to spend a little bit of time today to talk about why domain names still matter and how, on a positive context, you can retake control of your brand and retake control of your traffic. But first of all, about the digital transformation. So one of the things, of course, we are DotAsia, and one of the most important part of DotAsia is Asia in itself. Asia itself is transforming. I understand that the overarching theme of Internet Day here in Vietnam is about digital transformation, but the transformation in Asia is significant. We often talk about the rise of the Asian century, and a lot of people focus on China. But many projections now say that South and Southeast Asia's combined GDP will actually grow to the size of China's economy within the next decade. So within just a few years' time, ASEAN and South Asia combined will be as big as China. And this is the area where we are driving growth. In fact, right now, ASEAN is the driver for growth economically, and that's why ASEAN is interesting. Just in the last few years, ASEAN went from number 7 in terms of the largest economy by GDP up to number 5 now. And what is more exciting is that much of this growth and much of this activity is happening within Asia. So it's trading within Asia, within ASEAN, and with Japan, with India, within Asia. And that's something that I think is really interesting in terms of transformation. Of course, this has happened for millennia. The old Silk Road is a very good example of how Asia economy is driving the world economy. But also one thing that we realize is that Asians are quite immensely diverse. We across the land, and sometimes when we think about ASEAN or Asia as a community or marketplace, people scratch their heads, and the community in Philippines and here in Vietnam or in Thailand is so different. How do you treat it as one single marketplace, and how do you make a difference from that? I'll come back to that. But what is important is to know that the part of that transformation is about small and medium-sized businesses and getting them online and getting them to enjoy intra-regional commerce. What I mean by that is that really it's these micro businesses. If they can get online and they can sell their products across Asia, that is a digital transformation that will transform the the Asia and Asia Pacific region. But the transformation is not going to look like this in the past, but look much more like this. Yes, and of course it's about digital transformation, but it's also about logistics, because you have to eventually get physical products around Asia. So one of the first things that we actually notice at .Asia, interestingly, is that a lot of usage of .Asia domains fall into logistics projects. E-commerce, commerce.asia is using a .Asia domain to have an e-commerce platform across Asia. Other organizations like Lazada and Popbox.Asia, they're using their .Asia domains to provide logistics systems that cover the Asian marketplace. And this is not just one or two companies. We're seeing more and more companies realize that logistics drive the digital transformation, and also the scope of their work is particularly useful to utilize the .Asia domain. But we coming back to the core of it is supporting new initiatives, supporting startup. And one exciting part is that Asia is also home to more than 1/3 of the biggest and fastest growing startups, what are called unicorns. And here in Vietnam, it's exciting to know that Vietnam is one of the places where new startups are created and the most fastest growing in terms of creating new startups. And also, it's also noted as the #1 destination for investment into startups among ASEAN countries. Just looking at some of the statistics offered earlier. But what is the digital transformation? So what is different from before? I want to go into the heart of my conversation now in taking a look at how does the internet change businesses, and how does the internet change businesses in terms of the brand. That lady there with the little shop, corner shop, how does she express her brand online into the future? So it's one of the things that, at least that's my view, and what we have looked at in .Asia, is that the main thing that the internet changes is time and space. It becomes anyone, anytime, anywhere. Your product, your service can reach anyone, anytime, anywhere. And why is that? Why does that change the world? Well, think about this. The telephone, it needed 75 years to reach 50 million users around the world. The radio took 38 hours, and when you go down, and you see the last one, Angry Bird took only 35 days to reach 50 million people. That's the difference that internet brings. And even more recently, Pokemon Go took just 19 days to reach 50 million users around the world. And that changes the dynamics of the market. Another thing that changes the dynamics of the market is the space. Well, if a professor is facing a room like this, they would be talking about things. But how will it be different if the room is like this, right? I mean, if all your students are looking at the laptop, the way you conduct your course, or the way that you speak, will be hugely different. And those are things that when we talk about time and space, that's what changes consumer behavior, and that's what changes the time and the space you're in changes the behavior of users themselves. And here's an example. This is Obama and his family. In 2009, that's when his inauguration. He's just being elected, and he's about to go up to make a speech on his inauguration. This is in 2009. 4 years later, he won the election again, and this is how it looks like. Very different. The first one, he was looking up. The second one, he was looking down. Because the dynamics changed. Internet changed. Internet changed how people view the world. Before, it was more important to show very, respectful on TV that you're looking up. But now it's more important to respond to the tweets, right? That's what changes. And I think that brings me to how the digital brand identity changes in the pre-internet world, and I think the thoughts about branding is very different. Thoughts about branding usually is one coherent, only everything is standardized brand. But I'm going to take you through a few items that I think is going to change. That's part of the digital transformation of digital brand identity itself. First one I'm going to look at is brand. The name itself. Well, the brand on the internet starts with domain name. So, and also a domain name is .asia, of course, for us, but other things as well. .com, or here in Vietnam, .vn. But it is more than just an address on the internet, and it's also more than just a name. One thing that you have to understand is that when we learn about marketing, you must have heard location, location, location. Why are chain stores more effective? Because many different stores means more traffic, more businesses, more people can get to your premise. It's actually the same online. You have your main website, you have your main domain name, but every domain name potentially draws in different types of different types of traffic. And that's how you can utilize a portfolio of domain names. In the past, or right now, you might still be thinking, if I'm starting a company, I just want one domain. I'm telling you, a lot of the larger businesses, and actually those who are more in forefront of smaller business, are actually using multiple domain names to act like a chain store on the internet. And that's how also you can retake control of your traffic. And I come back to touch a little bit on consolidation. Two things that happen. One is Noel mentioned about Facebook. Noel mentioned about Google. Google does search. The more domains you have actively connecting to a network, the more visible you are on Google. You're retaking the ability to drive traffic to your various sites. The other thing about Facebook, it's about being able to retake the control of your traffic. Don't just give the Facebook / whatever name. Use your own domain and redirect to Facebook. There, if Facebook in the future you don't want to use Facebook anymore, you can redirect it to another service. That's also an important part of it, and that's what we're seeing from other, from companies as well. For example, DBS, the Development Bank of Singapore, actually uses dbs.asia to redirect to their Facebook page. So instead of saying facebook.com/something, they're using dbs.asia and jump to Facebook. So in the future, if they don't want to use Facebook anymore, they want to jump to another platform, they can redirect that traffic immediately. And that's an important thing. The other thing that is really important that I mentioned is multiplicity. We talked about the Asia marketplace as a very diverse marketplace, and online that is the case as well. So in terms of the branding component, you need to think about having multiple personas as well. Businesses, large businesses in the past, like McDonald's. There's McDonald's, there's McCafe, right? There is even Apple. It has different brands that come out. Like Facebook has bought different companies like WhatsApp, and they maintain it as different brands for a reason, because they're targeting different personas, different types of markets. At .asia, that's something that we have looked into as well. But what is important is to note that in this world of the exciting new world of the internet, it's not just .com, and not just .vn, and maybe not just .asia anymore. There are many choices of top-level domains, and that shapes the persona, that helps shape the brand. You can use the same brand, like my brand name, but you can use a different top-level domain for the specific purpose. If you're targeting a particular segment, you can use a .love. You can use a .kids if you're just targeting the kids segment with the same brand. Language as well. You can use different languages in your domain names, and that helps segment the market and create the personas that work in a digital marketplace. The second area is actually something that I took from Google. They often like to talk about what is called micro moments. In the digital transformation, what happens is that people want things immediately. Right now I'm thinking, I want to know something, I want to go to somewhere, I want to do something, I want to buy something. And here again, that happens a lot, but more importantly, this is how you can use top-level domains, use your different domains to capture that moment. When somebody's looking for information, they want to know something, well, you know, if your brand name is attached to .info, that makes a lot of sense. That's what they want to look for. If they want to go to Asia, you will go around, then .Asia makes sense. If they want to see a movie, then your brand attaching to .movie makes sense for that particular moment. And you know, if they're thinking about buying shoes, and your brand exists with a .shoes domain, that makes a lot of sense and creates the trust, creates the effect of the impulse that they would trust and go for it. And finally, I want to touch on what is called the moments of maximum emotional impact. Understanding what actually relates to your customers. I won't spend too much of time. There's lots of research on this, but the key aspect is that we often think that customers, consumers actually buy things rationally. That is proven time and again to be not true. Everyone makes decisions emotionally. Even the biggest buy, we buy a house, it's actually an emotional buy, much more than a rational buy. Even for businesses, and there's lots of research on it. I'll take one example and explain why. You must have seen this. Everyone has seen this, right? There's two lines, and you know for sure they're the same length. But when you look at it, one is shorter and one is longer, because your brain is actually trained, or our DNA is actually adjusted to emotion. Emotionally, you feel that that's shorter, even though you do know that they are exactly the same. You must have seen this. But no matter how you twist your brain around, you rationally know it. But if you just look at it, it will always be one that's shorter, one that's longer. Another one that's more interesting. Try this at home. I won't spend too much time. But read out, not the word, but the color. Try to read out the color and not the word. And, read it as fast as possible. And very soon you will get it wrong. Why? Because this is an area that we focus a lot in terms of when does it make most sense for people to think about utilizing a .Asia. And the same thing for a digital brand for your company. So combining these three aspects is something that I want to really talk about. We usually think of as traditional marketing, that's the marketing funnel, right? It's when you look at it, on the one side, you have more customers coming in, and then you funnel through the marketing funnel. You attract them, you engage them, you sell, they purchase, and then you want them to be your ambassador. But in the digital world, I'd like to see it a different way. If you think of it as bird's eye view, what I talked about as personas is one of the breadth, and then each of the micro moments lead people into the marketing funnel. And if you look at the funnel from the bird's eye view, you have to focus on that. That's what I mean by looking at the different moments and then focusing on the moments of maximum emotional impact to drive home the digital brand that you want to build. So as I wrap up, one of the things that, as mentioned, domain names themselves are more than just a name and more than just your brand. How to strategically utilize it so that you create a network, create a portfolio of domain names utilizing the aspects of that's pertinent to your brand and to your types of services and products are going to be important moving forward. And finally, there are lots of top-level domains to choose from. Our friends at PA Vietnam can help you to choose multiple. And again, it's the multiplicity part is really the most important part that I really want to talk about. And this is a part of a more constructive approach that small businesses can look big, but also small businesses can retake the control of their brand and their traffic through utilizing multiple domain names and not depending as much on Google and these Facebook and these large platforms. I'll end by noting that .Asia ourselves is actually a not-for-profit organization, and we support a lot of projects that support young Asians setting out to change the world. One of which is a training program that we hold every year, training young people to participate in the internet governance initiatives, which we will talk about in the panel later, about consolidation, about policies to rein those companies back in, those companies who are too big to fail. Yes, there's possibility to regulate them. Part of what .Asia does is to support young people in participating in those forums. So every .Asia domain actually contributes to internet development in Asia. Thank you.